So welcome everyone. We are going to allow a minute or two for people to log on before we get started this evening, but I want to thank you for joining us. Welcome and happy Black History Month. I am Imani Capri and I will be your host again and moderator tonight for our third webinar as part of the fourth annual Black History Month webinar series. I am the creator and host of the international award-winning radio show, Conversations and Courage with Imani Capri, which currently airs on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on 95.9 FM WOVU Cleveland or WOVU.org if you're listening outside of the local area. I am excited to join you this evening. This year's program is presented by the Cleveland Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, or CADRC. This federally funded grant was awarded to the Cleveland Clinic, University Hospitals, Case Western Reserve University, the Louis Stokes VA, and Metro Health Medical Center to work together as a research center without walls to study Alzheimer's disease and memory loss. I will be hosting 3 of the 4 weekly webinar sessions, each of which will take place on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Each week, we will begin with a 5-minute celebratory presentation of African American pioneers to highlight their accomplishments. After the presentations, we will then delve into the topic of the week with our esteemed panelists, followed by a question and answer session from you, our audience. We would like for this to be interactive, so if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat. All webinars will be recorded and the links will be sent to you following each webinar. Tonight's topic, caring for the caregiver, the importance of self-care, comes at the perfect time as we recognize National Caregiver Day tomorrow, February 21st, 2025. Our panelists this week are Dr. Crystal Glover, Reverend Frederick Knuckles, and Ms. Rochelle Long. But first, it is my pleasure to introduce Gordon Williams, who will present the celebratory presentation for tonight's webinar. Gordon Williams was raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and obtained his BA in psychology at Cleveland State University. He was first introduced to the field during his time in undergrad working with Dr. Kenneth Vail, focusing on existential psychology research from 2014 to 2016. From there, he was hired at university hospitals in the Clinical Research Center as a clinical research coordinator in 2018, and finally settled in the Neurological Institute Clinical Trials Unit, focusing on stroke as well as brain health and memory, the department in which he currently resides. Tossing it to you, Gordon.
Thank you so much, Mani. I really appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen so we can take a look at today's presentation. One moment. All right, perfect. So good evening, everyone. Thank you and welcome back to our series. Today's historical perspective is going to be a little more recent history than our last 2 presentations. This week, we'll be taking a look at Dr. Goldie S. Bird, the current director of the Maya Angelou Center for Health Equity. On top of her contributions to health equity, she's also contributed to Alzheimer's education and awareness as well. Dr. Bird was raised in Magnolia, North Carolina. She attended North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, or A&T, or NCAT for short. A&T is a public, historically Black university located in the city of Greensboro. Fun fact, A&T is the largest historically Black college or university in the United States in regards to enrollment, averaging about 14,000 students. She earned 2 bachelor's degrees, one in biology and the other in biology secondary education. Afterwards, she obtained her doctorate in microbial genetics and physiology from Harry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee. Mary Medical College is a private, historically Black medical school. In 2003, Bird returned to NCAT and became a professor of biology, and later became the first female chair of in the biology department. During her time as the Dean of College of Arts and Sciences at NCAT, Goldie Bird made the decision to found COACH, which is the Center of Outreach in Alzheimer's Aging and Community Health, in 2014. COACH is a research, education, outreach center at NCAT whose mission is to improve the quality of life for people with Alzheimer's and memory-related diseases, advocate for the rights of people with memory-related diseases, transparency, research, and also to promote the advancement of scientific research towards the treatment and cure of Alzheimer's. Bird was very deliberate in her efforts to cater to the Black community, as African Americans have an increased risk of being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. The COACH program was nationally recognized as a best practice for community outreach and support for Alzheimer's caregivers. Dr. Bird stepped down as COACH's executive director in 2019. Goldie Bird now works as the director of the Maya Angelou Center for Health Equity, located in Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. The center's goal is to address health equity and close health disparity gaps. They accomplish this via education, training, research, outreach, and engagement. Dr. Bird utilized the Pastors Network to get people involved. Bird has served on multiple boards, including on the North Carolina Biotechnology Center. Dr. Bird does have a long list of accomplishments. She was inducted into the 2023 class of most influential people of African descent. She's a former dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, chair in biology, and she received the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science and Mathematics and Engineering, which was received at the White House ceremony. And recently, she was recognized by the governor of North Carolina, by Roy Cooper, as the Health Equity Champion for the state of North Carolina. Here are the sources that I utilized for my presentation today. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, here's my information. Thank you all for your time, and I'm going to go pass it back.
Thank you, Gordon. So now we will introduce, or I will introduce, our esteemed panelists this evening. First, we have Dr. Crystal M. Glover. She is an applied social psychologist and mixed methodologist. She serves as an associate professor of neurology in the School of Medicine at the University of California, Irvine. She also leads the Outreach, Recruitment, and Engagement Core in the longstanding UCI Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. Dr. Glover's area of interest include health equity and health disparities, structural and psychosocial determinants of aging, intersectionality as a conceptual framework and methodology, and social cognitive processes. She has widely published her peer-reviewed work in several high-impact scientific journals, including Alzheimer's and Dementia, the Journal of Alzheimer's Association, CHEST, and Human Genetics. She leads Alzheimer's and Dementia, Behavior and Socioeconomics of Aging, the newest and fourth scientific journal hosted by the Alzheimer's Association, as its editor-in-chief. So welcome, Dr. Glover. Next up, we have Rochelle Long. Rochelle was introduced to Alzheimer's disease in her 20s when her maternal grandmother was diagnosed, and later watched as her 3 aunts also battled the disease. These experiences inspired her to advocate for greater participation in clinical trials, particularly within underserved Black and Brown communities. After leaving her career working with at-risk youth in her early 40s, to care for her aging mother, she became a study partner in Alzheimer's research alongside her aunt and mother at University Hospital Brain Health and Memory Center. Over the last 20+ years, she has been a clinical trial participant and has witnessed firsthand the need for more diversity in these studies. Her advocacy centers on the urgency of ensuring underrepresented communities are included in clinical research to find treatments that work for all populations. She speaks at events, volunteers, and works to educate caregivers about available resources. Her efforts have earned her recognition, including serving on the Cleveland Alzheimer's Disease Research Center's Minority Advisory Board and receiving the GAP Citizen Scientist Cornerstone Award. She has also presented at major Alzheimer's conferences such as AAIC in 2022 and 2023, and co-authored the pivotal article, Make Research More People-Centered, published in Alzheimer's and Dementia in 2024. She continues to fight for equitable representation in Alzheimer's research, emphasizing that without diverse participation, the solutions we seek will never fully address the needs of all communities. So welcome, Rochelle Long. And last but not least, we have Reverend Frederick Knuckles Sr. Reverend Frederick Knuckles has been in ministry for 43 years and served in the social service field in various management positions over 30 years. He is a certified national trainer for the Family Strengthening Network. He attended the American Baptist College, Ashland Theological Seminary, and the International Bible Institute and Seminary. He holds a bachelor's in theology and a master of arts in guidance and counseling. Pastor Knuckles was also bestowed an honorary doctorate of ministry degree. For 31 years, he has served as senior pastor of the New Fellowship Baptist Church of Cleveland, Ohio, and moderator of the Progressive Baptist Association, Cleveland, and vicinity for 10 years. And he serves as the chief visionary for its corporate affiliates. He has been honored as an outstanding contributor to education and is known as a trailblazer around fatherhood and family strengthening, an outstanding communicator and minister of the year, as well as an African-American role model by several organizations. He is listed in Who's Who in Religion and a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Inc. Frederick Knuckles serves as a commissioner and co-chaired the Cleveland Police Commission, focusing on grassroots efforts to strengthen the relationship between the greater Cleveland community and the Cleveland Police Department, with a special emphasis on the African American and Hispanic communities. Born in Cleveland, Ohio, he is married to Lady Virginia Knuckles, a noted singer and minister, and together they parent 4 children. In his role as Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager, Frederick will focus on engaging the Hispanic community in Lorain County and African American communities in Cuyahoga and Summit counties. Frederick will build relationships and partnerships to foster trust and connections to better serve the families touched by Alzheimer's and all other dementia in these distinct communities. So welcome to all of our accomplished and esteemed panelists. We are so happy to have you here with us this evening. And thank you again to you, our audience, who is joining us this evening. So let's jump right in. Anyone can answer this first question. What is one piece of advice that you can give to caretakers who are now taking on new roles for the first time? So for an example, what advice would you give, say, to maybe a spouse taking on financial responsibilities for the first time as a caregiver?
You put it out there as a spouse. I didn't do it as a spouse.
Just an example. Yeah, it could be any.
Taking on the financial part, is if I would say if you can, see if somebody else can help you with that, because that's huge. That's huge. But what has helped me is one day at a time. I know it's a song, but it's true. When it comes, that's when you have to deal with it, and you have to prioritize. Is it health? Is it finance? Is it me? Is it them? I have lived one day at a time for 18 years with my mother's diagnosis. In the beginning, the finances were easy. She always said that in those early years when memory was in and out, she was going to get a lawyer and sue me because I was stealing her check, but it was going in her bank account. You try to automate as much as you possibly can, so that takes the responsibility that day-to-day responsibility out of your hands. You know it's taken care of. It'll be handled. The check goes in, the bills come out, whatever the case may be. And that was one of the things that kind of helped me, is to automate as much as I possibly could to take that away, take that stress away.
I also like that you mentioned prioritize and ask for help, right? In previous discussions, we have been emphasizing the theme, especially when it comes to caretaking, caregiving, care plan making, that it is not only okay to ask for help, but highly encouraged to
Oh,
ask.
I
Yeah.
assigned help.
Fine. Yes.
I have 3 brothers. I was like, look, guys, there's 4 of us in this city. I actually have 4 siblings, but I said, there's 4 of us in this city. We each take a weekend. Y'all take either the whole weekend or take one day out of the weekend. I don't care. But you come pick her up and y'all go to breakfast, go to lunch. I don't care if you take her home, go for ice cream. I don't care. Spend while you can and you can interact. Because there's going to be a time where I'm going to tell you, you got her, and you're going to be on deck for breakfast, lunch, dinner, feed, change, the whole 9 yards. Because I already knew that. They didn't, but I did. And so, and that worked for a little while, but not long. My brothers were not. They were like, you got it, what you need. Let me help you. So.
I understand. Dr. Glover or Reverend Knuckles, do you have anything that you would like to add to this particular topic before we move to the next question?
Sure. I think one of the valuable things that we fail to do sometimes is to ask for help and to seek out organizations that provide education and support around the help. I'm fortunate, and I love to share with the fact that the Alzheimer's Association, for instance, provides education around the disease, what to expect at different stages of the disease. We provide support groups. There is no better way to learn than to learn from the experience of others who have walked down the same road. You gain friendships for years. You gain education that folks who have not experienced it would not be able to give you. You gain an additional network of folks who will support you and who will encourage you, especially in walking this new journey. And I think for a lot of folks who are accepting the responsibility, that thing called change is scary because it brings on a new responsibility. It causes me and pushes me and forces me to do things, like Rochelle said, that I probably wouldn't have never done. So seek help, ask for help. But I think it's important to know that you're not in it by yourself. So seek all the help you can. And I'll start with that.
Thank you. Dr. Glover, did you want to add anything on this topic before we move on?
Thing. And I also wanted to note that I was answering a question in the chat, so I'll be doing that as well to make sure everyone hears my perspective on that. But I will say that I echo Miss Long, Reverend Knuckles, always asking for help. And I would say it's very hard sometimes to be so vulnerable in asking someone else for assistance, or also thinking about the wishes of the person that you're caring for, what they want others to know. But I do think in the greater scheme of things, it's important that you are supported and that they get the care that they need. And that can only happen as a village, as a group. That may or may not be a family member. I provided long distance care for my father along with my brother, who is also long distance. And we were able to develop a network with my father's providers in town, other family friends. And as soon as we noticed something, And I did not have the support at the time of my brother because he did not see what I saw. And it wasn't necessarily cognitive impairment, it was another health issue. But as soon as you see something, start making any plans that you can. Any is good enough. It was a health plan, finances, even if you don't have someone on board with you, what can you do in your capacity to see what may be needed? And then others will come along, but by that time, you'll already be a little bit ahead of the game, hopefully. So always ask for that assistance and seek from trusted expert sources, including family, friends, religious leaders, and your medical care team.
I feel like, thank you, Dr. Glover. I feel that your response touched on a question that we had from the audience that relates to what we're talking about. But if anybody wants to expand, an audience member is asking, what suggestions do you have for those caregivers who do not have other family members in town?
I think I'll emphasize one thing that I didn't talk about is we have, go to alz.org, alz.org, which is our website. There is a wealth of valuable information on the website about caregiving, about what to expect. But then we also have a 24-hour care consultation hotline that you can call 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and get a live person on the other end who can walk you through processes. I think I better do this because it probably makes sense. 1-800-272-3900. I apologize for the shameless plug, but 1-800-272-3900. And you'll get a person who can help you on the other end, not AI, a real person who will pick it up and walk you through the process. So utilize those resources. If you're afraid to talk to somebody, and I think that's part of the challenge with folks who are being diagnosed with family members, is this thing called denial. Denial is not a river in Egypt. It's a real thing that happens, in our community. We're in denial that it's happening. I'll stop there.
Oh, I think this is so great. Thank you, Dr. Crystal. I see that she's in real time putting that information in the chat. So thank you. You have something additional that you wanted to add to?
Yes, I do. I think Reverend Knuckles brought up a great point that I think would resonate with anyone that aimed to be a caregiver for a loved one, a person in their lives, is oftentimes there's one person, typically a woman, that can see the issue manifesting. You see a change, whether you're in town, you're nearby, or you're long distance, because we're the ones speaking to the person very often, or seeing them, or having confidence in that person in terms of them confiding in us. So what I did was, in thinking about what I always advise others to do, the person living with the disease or with these cognitive changes or other folks in their orbit may be in denial. They may not want to face that hard truth. And it is a hard one to do so. So I don't blame them in any way. But what I did personally in that instance was, once I noticed that we were not willing to talk about this as a family, I went home, I spoke to my own spouse and thought about, how can I work with my professional calendar, my own finances, and then also my role as a daughter? Because we oftentimes miss that we can be caregivers or care partners, but we were once a wife, a daughter, a friend. How do we deal with that? So I started thinking through, how can I prepare myself for the change I'm going to see in my beloved father? How can I prepare financially to be of assistance? But then also, how do I get my own work affairs in order? Because that's very important to me. And so I wanted to make sure with that, and I had a very supportive spouse in doing those things. So that's what I mean, that support can come from anywhere, but even if it's just one person, what can you do to prepare yourself for these impending changes? I also put in the chat, the Alzheimer's Disease Research Centers, we serve as resources. I lead the outreach, recruitment, and engagement group here at the University of California, Irvine. Always welcome to put my email in the chat, get you in contact with people at centers nearby. Just let me know.
Thank you. This is so great. I love seeing all the engagement. This is such a rich wealth of information that is being shared and resources.
Imani,
Yes.
if I may, just to back what Reverend Knuckles was saying, and as well as Crystal. I did, Reverend Knuckles, contact the Alzheimer's Association once the diagnosis came down for my mother. I actually, to what you were saying, Crystal, had them test my mother when they diagnosed her sister, because her sister was living with us. I had brought her sister here to help me with her because she had to have back surgery, and that was a physical thing. I didn't know what was on the horizon. But once they said, yeah, we got this issue here, I was like, okay, hold up. And I made an appointment with the Alzheimer's Association. Everybody had to come in, all three of the brothers, my daughter, her husband, and all three children. And I want to say at that time, the youngest was 5. And we sat around the table and they explained, and we all got a copy of 365 day, a 365-hour day or something, a book too. And then I signed up with, support groups, and, it just really, I had to be that person. It became real apparent because 2 of my brothers own their own businesses, and it became real apparent that I was going to be that one. And so at that point, I started digging, I started researching. I was not going to do this by myself. I took my first clinical trial as a research partner. I took the trial packet. I went to my boss. I said, look, this is something I'm interested in. Will you take a look at this and let me know if this is something I can do? Because it will take me away from work, an hour or 2 here and there, maybe some days, several days a week, but I need to know, is this something I can do? And she is by trade a licensed social worker, but that's not what she's here for. But she looked at it and she said, absolutely, you've got my support. So to your point of the support doesn't always have to come from one area. And she has been my support as far as that goes over the last 20 plus years. And so, I mean, the resources are out there. We've put our emails there into the chat. Anybody want to talk? I'm
Yes,
here
yes.
because I know this road, and I know how lonely it can feel. I know how frustrating it can get. I know how hurtful it can be. My favorite saying is, this disease don't care nothing about me nor her, so I don't care nothing about it. I'm gonna do what I gotta do for my loved one.
Thank you for sharing. So there's another question here that relates to what we've been discussing here. There is a term, sandwich generation, and that refers to those who care for children in addition to an aging parent. So how can caregivers who fall in this category of that sandwich generation again find resources to support their daily lives? What suggestions might you, and I'll just caution this to say, please try to keep your answers kind of brief so we can make sure we get through the other questions too. But for those people that, caregivers that find themselves caring for children alongside an aging parent, what resources might you recommend to them to help them support their daily lives?
Again, I'll go back to what I said earlier in short answer, alz.org. alz.org is a great resource.
There's 5
Okay.
generations in my house, so everybody had duty. We
Yes.
passed it around, and then they have friends. So we have what's called the Grand Canyon Club.
Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Yep, you come sit with Graham, you her companion for a few hours.
Okay.
Y'all can sit here and watch TV and watch her at the same time.
Okay, I like that, Grand Canyon. Dr. Crystal, do you have anything on this one?
You and I'm putting everything in the chat because I'm sending links there that people may want to take a look at. So just any tangible, I'm putting written resources as well as video links.
Okay.
So however you may want to receive your information. So I'm just flooding y'all out right now with what we have on the ADRC NIH side, and ADRC is Alzheimer's Disease Research Centers. So I'm just going to load you up right now in the chat.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our next question. In last week's webinar, we touched on when it was appropriate to utilize services such as adult daytime care programs, assisted living, or nursing facilities. What do you say to people who may be hesitant or resistant to using facilities such as these? And anybody can chime in. Dr. Club.
I'll pop in if y'all don't mind. I am someone who utilized assisted living along with my father and my brother. We did reach consensus after a while that that is what is best. You know, that's what was best. And we grappled with that for quite a bit and thinking about wanting to have our loved one age in place. So at home, a beloved home that they built from the ground up and lived there for over 30 years, but then also the very real care needs that were occurring and thinking about the safety and everyday sanity of both my brother, myself, and our father. So, would we be able to lift my father? Would we be able to bathe, clothe my father in a way that someone with such dignity and maybe wanting to keep that remaining boundary of father and child intact? What does that look like? And we really had to sit down and make hard decisions about, well, things are not going to go to the way that they were. You know, we're only moving forward in this life at this point. So it was safety, sanity, and then also preserving that father child boundary that we decided to utilize that because there were just some things that we could not do based on work schedules, handling his finances, handling his healthcare needs. So conversing with doctors, social workers, etc. That was my responsibility, whereas my brother's responsibility was all around finances while caring for ourselves and our own family. So I would say there's no stigma or shame in it. It's making sure that the whole boat does not collapse due to this illness. So whether that's staying at home or using respite or assisted living or hospice, you name it, really sit down and think what's the best for all people in the village.
Thank you. I want to, well, it looked like y'all have some words on the edge of your tongue.
The Adult Day
Go.
Center is the lifesaver.
Okay.
They have activities that are tailored specifically for dementia care. And so it keeps your loved one engaged. Um, if I didn't believe in it before COVID, it became the lifesaver that I sell to everybody because of the simple fact, especially if you find a good one. It's during COVID, all I could do was get my mother up, get her dressed, fed, and then she would sit all day. She took her biggest decline in that 1 year because I could not duplicate that program. The activities that they provide for them. And even if you don't work a full-time job, it is still a very good place that they can go and have a quality day of activities while you run errands or you just have the day off or go to the movies. I mean, you have some self-care time. Um, it might just be taking a 4-hour nap, but that adult day center is a key component to their care and yours.
Thank you. Reverend Knuckles.
Yeah, I'll just add this little quick piece. Historically, as African Americans, we have been conditioned and programmed to believe by our forefathers that it has been our responsibility to take care of our loved ones. And so sometimes there becomes this issue when it's time to make a call like that. would our loved ones be upset with us? Did we fail our loved ones? As Dr. Glover and Rochelle both said, you have to make a decision based upon really what's best for the entire village. Sometimes we're not able to do some of the things or provide some of the care that's needed and necessary. So we have to move beyond the guilt or the self-guilt that we sometimes place upon ourselves, feeling that we failed our village, and really acknowledge that we put them in the best position for success, as much success as they can get. I'll throw another shameless plug because I've been getting some comments in the chat about respite services. One of the services that the Alzheimer's provides is a respite care. So for those of you who may be tuned in, would love to have respite care but can't afford respite care, give us a call. Reach out to the Alzheimer's Association here in Cleveland. We would love to explore your eligibility just to go get that manicure, that much needed rest, that exercise, the hair done, the haircut. That's what we're here for, to provide those services. Take advantage of them.
Thank you for sharing that. And because, again, our theme tonight is caring for the caregiver, I want to ask, what additional tips? I feel like we've been touching on them, but I'm trying to draw out if there's more that you want to say on this for our audience. Even thinking back to a time when we had to, in my own family, come together and care for the matriarch, my maternal grandmother, who she didn't have really dementia issues. Her stuff was more related to a stroke, but still having to come together, have those hard conversations, create a care team, a care plan, all of that. When I think back to my personal experience, I think how challenging it was to embrace the change that was happening, being vulnerable and stepping into a different space, like from this person that you love to now you're taking care of them. They may have once taken care of you, now you're taking care of them. There's a lot of emotions that come up during the process of being a caretaker. And oftentimes you're in a position of having to balance those emotions with like logic, right? Which can be very difficult, right? Because as you were saying, when you start thinking about safety and sanity, sometimes those type of questions are what's best for the entire village. The logical decisions and the emotional decisions don't always line up, and you have to find a pathway through all of that. So ultimately, my question is, what tips might you offer to anybody who finds themselves kind of in that conundrum right now, or something for the future that you can deposit with them? Like when the emotions, you're trying to work through the emotions and making those logical decisions, what resources can caregivers tap into for their self-care during that process?
Okay.
Mhm.
I allow myself to have those emotions. I go on, I deal with them, and I move on to the next, what I must. It's natural. I mean, we are full of emotions, period. That is a natural part of our life. And so as we go through this role, however, it's going to look different for each of us. I tell people that dementia is like cake. It has basic ingredients, but as the cake changes, so do the added ingredients, the time it takes to cook, or the preparation. All of there's so many other factors that come into play. But don't deny yourself. You're human. And I approach this in the same way that I approach being a parent. Um, to my small children. Yeah, don't get it twisted. I got feelings just like you do. There's stuff I don't like, just like there's stuff you don't like. I might not like your behavior. I love you, but I don't like your behavior. The last real laugh that my mother and I had, probably a good 15 years ago, was we were on our way to an adult retreat and we pulled out the gas station to a traffic light. And the light went, from green to yellow to red. And I turned and I looked at my mother and I said, Mom, when you check out, I don't get no warning. And she turned and she looked at me. She said, Don't feel bad, me neither. And we both laughed. We both laughed. She doesn't like this disease. She is, I don't like what's happening. Don't feel bad, me neither. Um, you, it's okay to get frustrated. You just have to recenter for me, I recenter myself that this is a disease and it's no different than any other disease. It's eating up my mother's brain, not necessarily her liver or her heart or her kidney. It's eating up her brain. But this is still my mother. I still have to recenter myself every single time. So I went to see her this morning. I kissed her on her forehead. She was like, "Oh, I got a headache." I said, "That was me kissing you." I said, "I love you, Mom." She says, "I love me too." I said, "Okay, well, we're on the same page now." And, we move on. So I was like, she didn't want to get out of her. Oh, we got to stand up, baby. We got to stand up because we got to walk to that chair and sit down. I don't want to. I know. I understand. If I could be just taken care of, that'd be good.
Thank
But we
you.
just have to recenter.
Thank you. Dr. Glover, we want to ask if you would also, you're doing an excellent job responding in the chat, but we also want you to say out loud what it is that you're sharing in the chat. So I don't know if you've addressed this question, but how do we find the best place for a parent when assisted living and or memory care is necessary? Example, thinking about stories about how people are treated greatly concerns me.
I completely understand that. And so I will share what I answered to Deidre's question in the chat. And I put a list of websites that I use for myself. One being that I found quite reputable, A Place for Mom. We see it on TV, but they actually checked out. And I also corroborated that information with state and local rankings. And then once I had that list, I started talking to people in the communities that surrounded those facilities. What are we seeing in terms of noise? What are we hearing in terms of loved ones who are using this for people that they have in their lives? What are we thinking? And then I also turned to my father's providers to say, please shoot it straight with me. What are we thinking about these particular institutions, these places, not just based on cost, but based on care and dignity? And I was so surprised with how many people were able to just sit down with me and say, hey, if you're thinking of cost, this is the best thing to do. If cost is not an issue, this is another thing, but this is a place that I would steer clear of regardless. So really being willing to approach these three different sources, whether it is commercial, so A Place for Mom, whether it is your federal and state rankings there, and then also people surrounding you and the healthcare team, which are great. I also had the privilege of working with the Veterans Administration, the VA, and they provided that information as well. I just gave them a phone call, let them know the concerns that I had, and they emailed it to me. So I asked about local rankings of assisted living facilities, hospice, nursing homes, etc. You name it. So I did that. One thing I did want to answer that I did not put in the chat was a question posed by Deidre Young, around our current administration, our presidential administration, executive and the impact that the recent executive orders, governance, etc., how that's impacting resources, information. And I'll be square with you that it is quite impactful that we are funded, all Alzheimer's disease research centers are funded by the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, and everything is sort of tenuous now, but we all remain committed to optimal aging, getting information out there. We just had a conversation at my very center today about how we are committed to getting this information to communities and continuing to do our research around caregiving? What are the mechanisms of the disease? How can we develop better treatments, therapeutics, interventions, etc.? So while this is majorly impacting our work, we are all committed to the work. So I put my email in the chat, so please contact me if you need any more resources.
And I just want to interject before we go to a question I'll toss to Reverend Knuckles in a moment, that if you are part of the audience and you have a concern about funding for research around these diseases, that we are not powerless in this. These are great opportunities for you to identify who your state representatives are, and don't be afraid to call them or email them about your concerns and what you would like to do and why, right? So I just wanted to add that to what you said. You don't have to feel victimless in hearing a professional like Dr. Glover say, yes, our funding is impacted. You can make your voice heard through your representative. That's one way. So yes, Dr. Glover, I saw your hand before we go to
Yes.
Reverend Knuckles. Yep.
I simply just want to echo that in that, I think all of us here, including myself, we've weathered storms before, and each of us has a role to play. And I think us adequately and firmly networking together, like these sorts of events, while I am concerned, I am not worried. So, meaning, of course, I'm concerned. So that means I'll do something about it, but I'm not worried about the impact that all of us have individually in our own roles, but also as Alzheimer's disease research centers and academicians in really working towards what we see as optimal aging for everyone. So please feel heartened in that we've done it before, we'll do it again. So we'll live through this.
Thank you.
One-
I want to hop to Reverend Knuckles, but Ms. Long, real quick.
Real quick, on researching facilities, you can also look at a rating and as with the state agencies, Medicare, when they have a violation, you can see what the violation is and how long it took them to rectify that. And that will be a part of their rating to find out. And you also have to think about that people do care. People. If you can go and talk to the people there, not leadership, but the people who actually work.
Thank you. That was great. Reverend Knuckles, this question is for you. What advice can you offer to male caregivers who may feel pressured to maintain their role of man of the house and who may be hesitant to accept help from others?
That's a good question. Thank you, Imani,
Mhm.
for that question. One of the roles that I have served in for the past 30 some odd years as pastor of the New Fellowship Church here in Cleveland, Ohio. Over the past 30 years, I have had many parishioners who were diagnosed with this terrible, devastating, deadly disease. And I didn't know how to minister to these folks. As a matter of fact, probably 80% of them were men or husbands who was taking care of their wives. When I started with the association almost 4 years ago, I still had one in my congregation who was caring for his wife. I get kind of emotional about this because, this idea that society has placed on us that we as men are supermen, that we can do all things that we're not supposed to ask for help. I want to debunk that myth. It's okay to ask for help. So when I learned about the services that the association had, and as this man's pastor for over 20 years, I went to him and I said to him, "You look tired. You've been doing a great job dressing your wife, bringing her to church, making sure she's at her appointments, doing the things that are necessary. But we have services available that can assist you, that can alleviate some of the burden that you have." He said, "Pastor, I've been married to this woman for over 45 years. He says, when I have to go to the grocery store, what I'll do is I'll get up, I'll get her dressed. She put her hat on, I put mine on, we get in the car, and I hold her hand and we walk to the store. And nobody knows anything is wrong with her. When it comes time to go to the doctor, she gets her clothes on, or I put her clothes on. I put mine on, she get her hat, I get my hat, we hold hands. He says, actually, what this disease has really done is brought us closer together. But I said to him, don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay. It's okay. And for those male caregivers who may be listening tonight, it's okay. There's only so much that we can do. And believe it or not, our loved ones probably need a break from us. Smile, chuckle there. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to receive help. In order to be, and I share this everywhere I go, in order to be the best caregiver that you can be, you have to learn to care for yourself. And sometimes caring for yourself is simply just saying, I need help. All of us at some point need help, and there's help. Simply, what can I say from one brother to another? It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to receive help. And it's okay to say that I need help.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, in keeping with the theme of caring for the caregiver, last week we talked about the caregiver is often referred to as the invisible patient. So, and this is open for anyone to respond to. Can you talk about the increased risk of physical and mental health issues that caregivers face and why it's so important to make sure that you are prioritizing or that the caregiver is prioritizing their own physical and mental, emotional, spiritual well-being?
I'll pop in here.
Okay.
Coming strictly from a research standpoint, is there's such a large body of evidence that indicates that many times caregivers lose themselves, whether it's the physical element of providing care, whether it's the mental and emotional portion, financial. So this has huge implications for people's employment, insurance, time, etc. And there's also a culture of selflessness. So, wanting to be of service. And if we do something to care for ourselves, is taking away from our loved one, or we're not living up to our duty. But we see time and again in terms of evidence-based work that the more we do not take care of ourselves, so that's say less physical activity. So even just a walk in the park or another lap around Target, as I would tell myself when I was providing care, any just additional steps, taking care of your diet in the best way that you can, even if it's one meal with extra protein, an extra serving of leafy greens, vegetables, fruits, etc., but then also seeking community and engaging in that. Those are not selfless or selfish acts. Those are things that keep you fueled as well. So when you're older, you're not facing, say, cardiovascular issues or metabolic issues or mental health problems. So these are things to keep you healthy because we do see caregivers facing a lot of physical and mental health challenges just for the sake of being a caregiver. But there are those that if we carve out just as little as possible. A little goes a long way and it's better than nothing in terms of taking care of yourself. That can even be a hair appointment, a nail appointment, an extra walk, something that is strictly for you, say mentally, but also for you physically. And then making sure that you're nourishing yourself spiritually and emotionally, talking to folks about your caregiving experience and sometimes letting out things that you may not tell other folks about the experience. So I would strongly encourage that as we do see that a lot with research in terms of just diminished health, overall health among caregivers.
Thank you. I want to interject one more question before we move to final thoughts, because we have about 5 minutes. So the answer to this question will have to be very brief. But what might you say to caregivers who may have feelings of anger, guilt, or frustration while they are caring for their loved ones? Brief answer on this one from anyone.
Those are destructive emotions. They destroy you and they prohibit you from caring for your loved one and yourself. It's not easy. But they're negative emotions that are directed at something that you can't control. So you have to recenter. And I understand that that's the way I look at it. But to tap into what Dr. Glover said, spiritually, mentally, physically, it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be a little. Talk to somebody. Find somebody that you can talk to that gets where you are and what you're going through. That would be Dr. Knuckles. That's where you come in, 1-800
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, I started to feel guilty with all my shameless plugs. But absolutely, Rochelle, talk to your spiritual advisor, your pastors, but also pray about it. But listen, prayer without works is a waste.
Yeah.
You have to put some works to it. Pick up that phone. There we go, Rochelle. Pick up the phone. 1-800-272-3900, or call your local office of the Alzheimer's Association. We have trained consultants there to talk you through whatever it is that you're going through. It's okay. You're not alone. That's the thing that I share all the time on our radio talk show that we have. You're not alone. We want to walk this journey with you.
Thank you. Dr. Glover, your last words of encouragement before we wrap up.
One thing I would say is anger, resentment, disappointment, while negative emotions are normal. This is a negative experience at times and is very stressful. So I would say, one, allow yourself to feel them, allow yourself to voice them to loved ones, spiritual leaders, etc., and then develop a plan on how you're going to move past them and how you are going to provide care along with other care providers for your loved ones. So that's how I govern myself: acknowledge it, feel it, get it out, and then strategize. And we are here to help with those resources in any way.
Thank you. So this is going to wrap up our webinar this evening, but thank you to our esteemed panelists for joining us tonight. Thank you to you, the audience, for joining us. Tonight's session is the final webinar that I will be hosting for the series, but the series is not done yet. So please join us next week for our fourth and final session, Thursday. Are you going to ask for a final thought? Yeah, we just did. Sorry. I was getting notes on the side. I'm sorry. But please make sure that you join us next Thursday for the final session of February 27th at 6 p.m. That session will be hosted by Mr. Leon Bibb, where they will discuss hypertension control and brain health. Following tonight's webinar, you will receive an email which will include the link to a resource packet for the series, the recording to this session, and a feedback survey. We encourage you to fill out the feedback survey following each webinar. Your feedback helps the team here to create the topics in future presentations such as these. Don't forget to take a moment tomorrow to celebrate and appreciate the caregivers in your life as we recognize National Caregivers Day. It has been a pleasure hosting these past 3 sessions. And thank you again for joining us. Good night.